Hello, this is RV Vagabond Jerry, and in this video I'm going to talk about my top 10 frustrations in being a full-time traveler. And believe it or not, it's not all a big joy from day to day. There's a lot of good, there's some bad, and that's what you're going to hear today. And my first three frustrations have to do with driving my motorhome. Number one is trees. Unless I'm on an interstate or some major road, then typically I'm going to have to watch out for trees constantly, especially driving through cities. Cities like to have trees right along the road most of the time, and they look nice, but they're really a pain in the neck for drivers of RVs. Now, I think there's a nationwide limit of 14 feet high for trucks. However, trucks don't really care that much about hitting trees on their roof, because on their roof is nothing that could get damaged. But on motorhomes, there are all sorts of antennas on my roof. There's air conditioners, there's solar panels. There's a lot of things up there that could easily be damaged if I hit a tree limb. Now, my motorhome, with the highest thing that's on it, is about 12.5 feet. So if I'm driving through cities or small side roads, I'm always dealing with these trees. And one of the big problems is I have to watch the trees in some places just as much as I have to watch the road ahead of me. It's really a driving hazard, having to keep my eyes up as well as down. And I have to be very careful about letting trees hit my roof, because if I hit something too hard, it can really damage things on my roof. In fact, one time I hit a tree limb and it actually knocked my satellite antenna off of my roof. And it fell on the street, just rolling down the street, and it ruined it so bad that when I tried to reconnect it, it wouldn't work. I had to buy a new satellite antenna and have it reconnected, and that cost me about $1,300 for that little mistake. But still, often I'm having to go through areas where I just cannot avoid the trees hitting my roof. And when that happens, I stop and I go super slow so that it just barely brushes against my roof and the things that are on it. Number two is having the bottom of my RV hit the pavement. Now, this often happens when I'm coming out of a parking lot, because most parking lots will have a ramp that goes up into the parking lot. You go up into the parking lot, it's not a problem, but when you're exiting the parking lot, you go down that ramp, then you got to be careful about the bottom of your RV hitting the asphalt, because you can do a lot of damage underneath your RV if it hits the asphalt and scrapes on something and maybe breaks something under there, knocks something out of place. So it really happens a lot, especially coming down off of parking lots. And I tried to resolve that problem by putting on skid wheels, and I did a whole video about the skid wheels that I have in my motorhome. They're two little 5-inch wheels underneath the backside of my RV, so that when I do hit bottom, then instead of hitting the bottom of my RV, it will hit those skid wheels and just roll off. However, there's been a couple of times when I hit bottom so hard that it broke the skid wheels. And those skid wheels, I found out later, are not really designed to handle the weight of a diesel pusher like mine, where the engine is in the rear. There's a tremendous amount of weight in the rear right on top of those skid wheels, and if you hit too hard, it can easily bust a skid wheel. But that's probably better than having the concrete or asphalt hit the bottom of my motorhome and cause some damage under there. So that's something I have to be constantly watching out for. Number 3 is making U-turns. Quite often, as I'm trying to find something, I find myself driving the wrong way down the road, and I gotta somehow make a U-turn to get back on track. If it's convenient, the best way is just to drive down a street, back, and come back, so you don't have to actually make a U-turn. But I do quite often make U-turns, and that is a bit difficult. And sometimes I do it by going into a parking lot, or going to, if I'm at an intersection where there's a really wide area, trying to make a turn, but I rarely can just actually make a nice smooth U-turn. Quite often I have to go like this, and like this, and like this to get going the other direction with some sort of a U-turn. And in a lot of places, there's just not room to make any sort of a U-turn. And I end up going a long way out of my way until I can find some place where I can turn around. That's a very frequent frustration. Another almost constant frustration is dealing with things that break in my motorhome. Soon after I think I've got everything fixed, everything is working right, something breaks, or something just does not function properly. So I'm constantly having to deal with things that go wrong that I gotta fix one way or another. And I bought my motorhome brand new, fresh out of the factory, special ordered. So it wasn't influenced by a previous driver or being on a dealer's lot for a long time, that kind of thing. Fresh out of the factory. And in my first year that I had the warranty, I had about 25 warranty issues that I had to get fixed during that 1-year warranty. But when that year is up, now it's all on me. And let me tell you, driving any kind of an RV, especially a motorhome, it is just one thing after another. After I've got everything working right, as far as I know, it's not going to be long before something else goes wrong. And that brings me to frustration number 5 is RV repair shops. When I have to go to an RV repair shop to get something fixed, it doesn't do much good, I found, to call them on the phone. You got to go in. And when I go in and say, I need this fixed, I'm just passing through town, I need it fixed right away so I can continue on my journey, they say, well, we're busy for the next 3 weeks. I hear that so frequently, and 3 weeks seems to be the typical amount of time when they say they can fit you in to their schedule. I tell you, I should have a long, long time ago gotten into the RV business, because RV repair shops never seem to be for a lack of work. They have just got a constant stream of work, and you're looking to their back lot, and they have got like 100 RVs sitting there that they're in the process of working on. It just seems to be a booming business constantly everywhere that I've seen. So sometimes I will have to stay in a location I don't want to be in for a week or 2 or 3 in order to get things fixed in my motorhome, because the RV shops, not only are they backed up in getting 2 units, but they have to order parts. They only keep very, very common parts in inventory. So whatever you need to be fixed, 99% of the time, they're going to have to order parts. And that can take a week or 2 to get a part in. So dealing with RV shops is also a huge frustration. And next brings me to number 6 is getting a good cell phone internet service. I get most of my internet off of my cell phone, but in a lot of locations, I can't even get internet service at all. My telephone on my cell phone pretty much works everywhere. But to get internet, it varies a lot from location to location as to how strong the signal is. And then in some places, my carrier just does not have cell phone service at all. It's okay for telephone, but for internet, I've been some places where I cannot get any internet service at all. And I do have a cell phone booster antenna on my roof. I got my cell phone booster, I hook up to that, and sometimes that helps and sometimes it doesn't. So it's a constant battle to get a decent internet connection on my cell phone. And that brings me up to item number 7 is Wi-Fi. I rarely use Wi-Fi. The only time I use it is when I can't get cell phone service at all, but I can get Wi-Fi. And when I do that, you really can't upload videos to YouTube off of Wi-Fi unless you're in a place where you've got a really strong signal. And RV parks always advertise, we have a Wi-Fi. They'll even call it high-speed Wi-Fi. But their high-speed Wi-Fi is super slow. So getting a Wi-Fi signal strong enough to upload a video is pretty rare. And I also have a Wi-Fi booster. And I really like the Wi-Fi booster software. It tells me what I need to know. But finding a good Wi-Fi signal that you can use, especially if you haven't paid for a Wi-Fi service or it's not included in whatever you're doing, and like if you're getting a Wi-Fi signal from a Dairy Queen or a McDonald's or some kind of a coffee shop or whatever, it's always really weak unless you're sitting right into their coffee shop. Then it's like an okay signal. But in the parking lot, even with my Wi-Fi booster, the service I'm getting from the Wi-Fi is still just marginal. And also, when I'm getting a Wi-Fi signal, a lot of times these Wi-Fi signals just cut out. And my Wi-Fi software will say that I am connected to Wi-Fi, but there's no internet coming through. I see that so often, which I don't really quite fully understand, but it tells me that you're connected, but you're not getting internet. So trying to get a decent Wi-Fi signal is another constant frustration, which I try to avoid as much as possible by using my cell phone for internet as much as possible. Another frustration is making reservations at RV parks or campgrounds. Now, and a lot of times when I make a reservation, when I get there, I find the place is mostly empty. So I really didn't need to make a reservation. And then sometimes when I get to a place where I didn't make a reservation, oh, they're full. And I don't like to make reservations too far in advance because my schedule can easily change. A lot of times I'm getting kind of ahead of myself of time I planned to be in a certain area, and I'm a day or two ahead of time. And then sometimes there can be delays. Maybe I have a mechanical issue or something that delays me, and then I'm not there the day that I thought I would be. So I don't like to make reservations at all. But in some places, high demand areas, I do make reservations. But it is a constant frustration as to when I need to make a reservation and when I don't. And then when I've made the wrong decision as to whether to or not. And the number 9 is when staying in RV parks or campgrounds, trying to get a spot in the park where I'm not blocked overhead for satellite reception or for solar panel reception. Now, if I'm plugged in to outside power, I don't really need my solar panels. And that's usually the case. But in some campgrounds, you're basically boondocking as far as power goes, and I need my solar panels to provide the majority of my battery charging. And if I've got trees blocking me, I'm going to get very little solar collection. And then if I've got trees blocking me in the way of between me and the satellite for TV reception, which is the southern sky, then there's been a lot of places where I could not get a satellite signal at all. And sometimes I'll have to call the RV office and tell them that that location just didn't work for me. I need to find another RV site that I can go to where I'm not blocked by the trees. And they'll let you change your space if they have another space available. But I have been in some campgrounds where there is no place in the campground where I can get away from those doggone trees. And then number 10, another big frustration is keeping my batteries charged. I have 900 watts of solar on my roof, and I have a 200 watt portable solar panel system, but still it's a big frustration in keeping those batteries charged. Now in the summer, my solar will get my batteries 100% charged midday, usually every day. But late in the year, in the winter, then a lot of times the solar is just not going to do much good at all unless it's a really clear day. But in the middle of the winter, when the sun is so low, rarely will I get my batteries up to 100% charge if I'm not plugged into outside power. So I end up having to run my generator every day for maybe hours a day to supplement the solar collection I'm getting from my panels. And I have to monitor my battery charge level almost constantly to make sure that my battery charge and my batteries don't get too low of a charge. Try and keep them above 50% charge level. And if, in fact, another big frustration is that if my batteries get down to less than 55% charge level, then my inverter will just automatically set to cut off. And that's something that I've not been able to avoid, is that inverter cutoff happening. If I get down to about 50 to 55, then my inverter just automatically shuts down, and that's just set into the system that I cannot change. And when my inverter turns off, it just plays havoc with my electronics. I've got about 6 or 7 pieces of equipment that have to be rebooted or adjusted when the power comes back on. So I never want my inverter to get turned off, but it often happens. And I got to go through this rebooting process on several pieces of equipment. So I try not to let my batteries get to less than a 55% charge level. But if I'm not getting enough in solar, then I got to run my generator a lot. And the auto generator turn on and off, sometimes that works well, and sometimes it just doesn't. And I got to do a manual generator turning on and off. So dealing with keeping my batteries charged is a big frustration. Well, those are my 10 items. There are some smaller items that I have to deal with as well, but I figure those are the top 10 frustrations of being a full-time traveler in an RV. So if you're going to do this full-time or even close to full-time, don't expect it to be wonderful all the time. You are going to constantly be dealing with problems. I hope you don't have as many problems as I do, but I bet you will. Good day, folks.